Okay, so welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. Today I'm talking about decentralized autonomous organizations, otherwise known as DAOs. Haven't you ever heard of a DAO before?
Yeah,
Okay, good. Any of you guys built a DAO before?
almost.
Okay, that's fine. Towards the end, we're going to talk about how to build one. So before we begin, I just want to take the time to introduce myself. And I've set down 3 flags at the bottom, so you guys can guess as to where I'm from. So go ahead. Okay, you got that one right. Anyone else?
What's the second one?
That's Singapore.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, from the first one, Mongolia. And you may have not known, but we use the same alphabet as Bulgaria. So I've written my name in your native alphabet with the hopes that you could pronounce my name correctly or better. You want to give it a try? No? Nobody else? Huh? No, my name is the first bullet point. So you want to give it a try? I wrote it in your alphabet so you could try to pronounce it or whatever. Okay, not bad. Yeah, so it actually worked out. Yeah, so I'm Anar Angsahan. I've been an iOS engineer for several years for startups and enterprises alike in New York. As recently as last year, I've become very interested in the Solidity programming language to create smart contracts on the Ethereum blockchain. And I've been to the largest Ethereum hackathon to date. That was called ETH-Denver. That was in Denver, Colorado. Met a lot of really cool guys there and girls. And so we've got to be fair, right? All right. So I was so interested, I decided to enroll in a blockchain course with SoftUni. And that's the reason for the second flag. It was in Singapore. And after graduating, it brought me to Bulgaria here today to present this lecture to you. So let's talk a little bit about what a DAO is exactly. So we know that from the 3 letters, we can say that it's a decentralized autonomous organization, right? When most people read that, they get the third part. Okay, I guess I see what an organization is. That's familiar to me. But I'm not quite sure what decentralized and autonomous are. That's fine. That's what we're going to dive into, the first 2. So I thought before we tackle what decentralized means, I thought it'd be good to talk about what the opposite of decentralized means, centralization. And this is what I think of when I see centralized. You know? Do you guys recognize this person? Yeah. Okay. He's the Prime Minister, right? Boyko Borisov? And Borisov, yeah. And do you like him?
Some.
Do you like the government that he leads? Okay, well, I heard a lot of complaints, you know. Well, I won't go there, but you know, it's funny because a lot of people complain about the government, but the funny thing is, in the United States, they also complain about their government and how their government is structured. So it doesn't really have to do with like the country where the government is placed. It has more to do with the problems that are inherent to a centralized form of government. And let's talk about some of those characteristics of a central form of government. So we have a single point of control or failure, subject to foreign domestic coups d'etats. So coup d'etat is kind of like an overthrow, regime change. If it doesn't make any sense, let me know. I'll keep throwing words out there. So concentrated power and authority, inefficient local governance, and it's prone to rigged elections. So let's talk a little bit about single points of control. So you have all the power and authority of the country concentrated in the hands of one or a few people, right? And that could lead to abuse of power. As the saying goes, absolute power corrupts absolutely. In addition to that, there's also a single point of failure. So in a top-down government structure, you have the central government of Bulgaria basically controlling all the other provinces of the country, such as Varna, Plovdiv, and Burgas. I hope I got that right. And they're receiving like directions, guidance, and money from the central government. So all the money goes from the taxes of the local provinces, goes all the way to the central government. The central government decides what to do with it and disperse it back to the local provinces. But what happens when the central government goes down? Now those provinces are pretty much out of money. There's no direction, no guidance. The government is now headless. So essentially, the other local provinces, they all start falling apart one by one. And that's it. You no longer have a government in place. Some of the threats to single points of failure can come from outside, such as a foreign invasion and takeover. A neighboring country with a stronger military can just march into Sofia, storm the parliament, and install their own government. And now, since there was only one point of control, they effectively have control over the entire country. And the people basically have no recourse as to what to do. There's also domestic threats. So there's a famous example, maybe you guys are familiar with it. It was a national uprising of September 9th, 1944. And there was a socialist faction of Bulgaria that were able to overthrow the central government during that time. And they were, with some outside help, they were able to install a socialist regime for 45 years. So people, regular people did not have a say in this. It was an extreme local faction that took government over through violent means, and they were able to successfully rule the country for almost half a century. Another issue with central forms of government is a lack of transparency. It's really difficult for the average Bulgarian citizen to actually know what's going on underneath the government, because there's this cloak of secrecy, layers upon layers of bureaucracy. It's very difficult for the average citizen to have any idea what's going on inside their government. And it's gotten so bad in some countries, like in the USA, there was Edward Snowden, who was able to remove this cloak of secrecy through releasing government-sensitive materials, and the public was finally able to understand what was actually going on in the first place. But before then, they were in the dark, pretty much. So most people just assume that the government is, they trust their government, and they're following protocol, and the people there are fair and impartial. This lack of transparency leads to all kinds of corruption. So now that the regular citizens have no idea what's going on inside their government, a bureaucrat may decide to enrich themselves by taking bribes from companies that want to gain a competitive edge over their competitors. And they don't really care. They'll take the money, they'll give them the contract, and that contract that was supposed to be in a competitive fashion to benefit the public will no longer be such a case because, again, bureaucrats, sometimes they follow protocol, sometimes they don't, mostly they don't. Other forms of corruption could be, for example, a bureaucrat wants to give a job to their cousin or their brother. Nepotism. There's no qualification there except family relation. And people get away with it all the time. It's no different whether you're in the USA or Bulgaria or Kazakhstan, wherever. Another issue I want to talk about with central forms of government are rigged elections. So here, the problem I noticed was the people watching over whether the government can conduct an election in a fair and impartial manner is the government itself, right? So what do you think is going to happen? The people are trusting that the machines are not hacked, or that the counters are acting in a fair and impartial manner. They're not just throwing away votes, or if they're even doing them correctly. So people are essentially putting a lot of trust into elections that are being centrally controlled. And I want to mention that in between elections, people have limited options to influence their government. So once you vote in one election, now you have a 4-year period where the government can run free, lack of transparency, and then you have to wait until the next election that may or may not be rigged. Another point is inefficient local governance. I want to ask you guys a question. Who do you think can govern the people of Varna better? Sofia or Varna? Okay, fine, Sofia. But the people of Varna may disagree. They'd be like, why are we listening to people who are 6-hour drive away from us when we know what's going on in our own local province? But from a top-down structure, the central government is basically the ruler of the universe. They tell you, you do this, otherwise we don't give you money, and there's not much you can do about it. And that's very true in the United States as well. Local states are pretty much powerless against Washington, D.C. So,
What if a single city has all the resources?
if they have all the resources?
Oil, for example.
Well, what happens?
Should that city be able to decide to keep all the oil to itself?
I don't know much about Bulgaria, but in the US's case, no. So they basically have to give all their resources and influence to DC. And if they decide to do anything differently, then they'll bring out the police, they'll bring out the army.
Yeah, but if the city decides for itself, it would just choose to do that anyway.
Yeah, but the problem is, at least in the US's example, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but they receive their taxes and they send it all to Washington, D.C., and then DC, the officials there, they decide how to distribute the money. So your money is essentially hostage with the central government. And I assume that something similar is in fashion or in place with Bulgaria. So now you know the problems of centralization, and they've been problems that have been around for a while, and you're wondering, how can we solve these problems? Is there a solution for us? Like, will we ever see one in our lifetime? Well, today I want to present to you, yes. Do you guys recognize him at all? Oh, okay. Well, it's Vitalik Buterin, the founder and inventor of Ethereum. It's a decentralized platform for what's called smart contracts. They're just essentially programs that live on the Ethereum blockchain. And here he is pointing to Ethereum as the way, the light, to a brighter future. Let's talk about some of these characteristics of decentralization that differs it from centralization. In decentralization, you don't have a single point of control or failure. It's trustless, permissionless, and censorship resistant. Yep, these all sound pretty good. Let's go into what they mean. No single point of control or failure. So in the previous example, under centralization, you had essentially the government sitting in Sophia as a sitting duck. But under Ethereum, people run these machines run Ethereum software, and they're called nodes. And they run the software, they have a copy of the blockchain, the Ethereum blockchain. They are receiving and executing transactions all over the world. And the machines or nodes that are running the software are not only located in Bulgaria, but throughout the entire world. Right? That's pretty powerful. So in a centralized form of government, it's essentially not trustless, because you have a third-party intermediary, the government in this case, handling business transactions on your behalf from local companies. So company proposals that were designed to benefit the public good are being mishandled by the government, but where they say, okay, maybe I like your proposal better. What can you do to convince me? And the companies will, slip them a few coin. And they'll be like, oh, great, that's awesome. That's awesome for me, but not for the public. The public was trusting the government to do the right thing, to follow protocol, and look at every proposal in a fair and impartial manner. So the people of Bulgaria are placing a lot of trust and faith in their government to do even a simple thing as handling business transactions. In a trustless environment, however, such as Ethereum, there are these, the need for a third-party intermediary essentially goes away because they've been replaced by what's called the smart contract. So a smart contract is just a fancy word in Ethereum for what's essentially a program. So we all know how programs work, right? You have your editor, you're writing some code, so you write down the rules and functions of our decentralized autonomous organization, and once they're deployed, they're immutable, they're safe, and they're going to run it as you expect. So since there's no need for a middleman or an intermediary, everything goes straight through the smart contract. So the business transactions before are being run through the smart contract. Companies are sending proposals to the smart contract. People can view what's coming through. They can vote on them, if they like it or not. And after some certain votes have been counted and the time for debate is over, they can execute the proposal all in a trustless fashion, right? Because you can trust the machine to do its job. It also gives us a permissionless kind of environment. So under centralized form of government, we have to ask the government for permission for pretty much everything. You want to start a company, you ask the government for permission. If you want to hire people, if you want to sell food in the street, right? But with Ethereum and smart contracts, you don't need to call up any government, corporation, or Vitalik Buterin. You don't call them up late at night, be like, hey, Vitalik, I got this great smart contract, but I want to run it by you, see if it's okay. I was trying to start a DAO, but maybe you might not like it. And he'll say, you know what, maybe I might like it. I might change a few things around. Okay, let's talk about it tomorrow. Nothing like that. You can write your contract however you want, the rules you want, how you want your organization to behave, and you're going to deploy it to the Ethereum network. It becomes immutable, stored throughout the entire world on thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of nodes, right? And anybody can view your smart contract, see if they like it or not. Okay? it also gives us a lot of censorship resistance. So, as we spoke about earlier, like the governments can't go to a smart contract or look at your smart contract and say, okay, I don't like the smart contract, we're going to take it down. You know, we're going to shut down your decentralized autonomous organization because you're giving too much power to the people. They can't do that because of the infrastructure that Ethereum provides. Like, if they wanted to, they could send out all these people and destroy all the computers in Bulgaria, and they're like, oh, we're safe now. We're safe from his autonomous organization. But there's going to be nodes outside of Bulgaria too. So your DAO will always be running on the network like 24/7 in a stateless fashion. Now let's talk a little bit about what autonomy is. So for me, autonomy is about self-rule, self-determination, right? Freedom from a foreign actor, right? Independence from a foreign actor. So you could think of an autonomous car, for example. That car can drive itself without you being in the car. And even if you're in the car can still drive itself without you ever touching the wheel. So that's a great, I think, symbology of autonomy. And I think DAOs give us autonomy because they can act independently without any influence from an outside actor, right? If you guys have any questions, please let me know. Yeah, sure.
What do you mean without influence from outside actor? Every contract is supposed to have people interact with it.
Yes, but
if nobody interacts with it, it would simply do nothing.
Well, so I was going to get into this towards the end, but essentially, when you run your DAO, if you want to give a proposal, for example, right? If you're not a member of that organization, you can't do that. So that's one way to avoid outside influence.
Also permissionless as well.
Well, you have to understand permissionless for the entire Ethereum infrastructure, right? So it's permissionless in the fact that you can upload your DAO, you know, however you'd like, right? But it's not permissionless where somebody's like, oh, I don't like your DAO. I want you to change it because I feel it's like it's not permissionless enough. That's not how it works. It's like you get the highway, right? The supercomputer highway to upload your applications any way you like. But how you design your DAO is up to you, you know? And people have a right to either join it or not based on what they're reading. But we'll get into that later. We're going to go over how to build a DAO. Okay. So let's talk about autonomy under the European Union. How do you guys feel about the EU, by the way? I know it's very popular in Bulgaria, right? Yeah, so it's fine, everything's cool, but we still have to talk about what autonomy looks like under the European Union. There are levels of bureaucracy, like any government organization, whether it be supranational or national. You have unelected officials, right? It's a bit of a black box. You can't really, so you know what it's doing, but you can't really look inside and see how it's working, you know, what each power structure is doing, how it's being voted on. That's all kind of a mystery for the average citizen. So let's talk about bureaucracy. Do any of you guys know about Penka? Yeah? Nobody? Anybody? So Penka, I thought this was really hilarious, a very hilarious story. And you know, I was afraid, how am I going to explain autonomy to Bulgarian people without being controversial? And then Penka was like a gift, you know? It was a Bulgarian cow, right, belonging to a Bulgarian owner. And that cow escaped from its owner. It crossed the border from Bulgaria into Serbia, non-EU territory, right? Serbian farmers recovered Penka, gave it a clean bill of health, you know, with their health services, and they tried to return it to her owner. And there was a bit of a problem. The border guards at Bulgaria were like, sorry, we can't let the cow through. According to strict EU regulations, the cow has to be executed. Yeah. They said the cow has to be executed. So what ended up happening was these three guys from Brussels came down, they executed the cow, and had steak for dinner that night. Yeah. So obviously that didn't happen, but the main takeaway from this story is, for me at least, is why is Bulgaria waiting on directions from Brussels as to what to do with their own cow in their own country, right? Can't they make the basic decision that, hey, this cow had a bit of bad luck, it didn't have its papers on him, let's show him leniency, right? And it would have been a non-story. But instead it became, the world was outraged. They were like, the UK officials were saying, Penka is a victim of bureaucracy, right? and they're talking about this evil institution trying to kill this poor animal. So while Bulgarians were waiting on Brussels, Brussels said like, okay, fine, we'll show the cow leniency. We won't kill it. Let it in the country. And now today, it's safe and sound with its owner. But yeah, that raised a lot of concerns of autonomy for me. If we're concerned about a cow, you know, if the cow is so concerning to an outside state like Brussels and we're waiting on orders from them, even though we're in Bulgaria, where's the autonomy there, right? Yeah.
I have one question. So let's assume that we have some smart contract organization where everything is very specifically written and there are very strict conditions.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly the same condition, if we assume that we have it in the smart contract, won't be able to be changed.
So I think.
So, just to finish.
Sorry.
So in this case, with Penka, if we had DAO, the cow would be killed. But with such a kind of human organization,
Mm-hmm.
there is a second level of fault or influence, or if you want feedback from the public to the management, and they can change or influence the conditions for the specific case. In smart contract organizations, as far as I know, it's very difficult or if not impossible to make such changes.
Yeah, but
So-
you can create a vote, you can create a poll if you should kill a cow. Like you can
And
create a
that
poll.
poll was created, and the border patrol voted that it should be killed. And then
But no,
somebody
not
else
the
needed to
border-
vote as well.
But not the border patrol is the one who they have to vote. The citizens from Bulgaria have to vote about that.
Yeah, so he brings up a good point. In like a smart contract, you design it in such a way where like, okay, the people of our DAO, or in this case, the people of Bulgaria, will vote on whether we're going to have steak tonight or not, right? But instead of a DAO, we're waiting on these guys, you know? Who are these guys? Do you guys know them?
Sure.
Yeah? You know? Okay, so he knows at least. So somebody did their due diligence on the supranational organization controlling their country. So this guy is Herman Van Rompuy, first president of the European Council since 2014. This is Donald Tusk, the current president of the European Council, European Commission, Council. And this is Jean-Claude Juncker, all right, current president of the European Commission. And for me, this was concerning. I was like, okay, I'm in Bulgaria, and these guys that I don't know are effectively have direct influence or indirect influence. I wonder if this is concerning for people. Apparently, it was concerning for people. In fact, a British European Parliament member actually brought up this exact issue, and I just want to show you a video. Let me just play it here. Sorry, being a little technically challenged here.
You have the charisma of a damp rag and the...
No, the sound is kind of low. So, is tech here?
The sound is coming from that. Just put your microphone next to the computer.
Okay, maybe you can read the subtitles or something, but it's not the same. All right. Just try very hard to listen.
You have the charisma of a damp rag and the appearance of a low-grade bank clerk. And the question that I want to ask, that we're all going to ask is, who are you? I'd never heard of you. Nobody in Europe had ever heard of you. I would like to ask you, President, who voted for you? And what mechanism? Oh, I know democracy is not popular with you lot. And what mechanism do the peoples of Europe have to remove you? Is this European democracy? Well, I sense, though, that you're competent and capable and dangerous. And I have no doubt that it's your intention to be the quiet assassin of European democracy and of the European nation states. You appear to have a loathing for the very concept of the existence of nation states. Perhaps that's because you come from Belgium, which of course is pretty much a non-country. But since you took over, we've seen Greece reduced to nothing more than a protectorate. Sir, you have no legitimacy in this job at all, and I can say with confidence that I can speak on behalf of the majority of the British people in saying, we don't know you, we don't want you, and the sooner you're put out to grass, the better.
Yeah, so it's not exactly the same without any sound. You know, with the sound, it's so powerful. You know, it's touching, really. Like,
It's their job to be
Yeah, but I was saying, okay, here's a guy from a European Union nation country. Well, at that time he was. And actually, I want to say, yeah, I know Nigel Farage, he's not much of a loved figure here, right? But I just want you to, you know, yeah, there's some baggage, but I want you to separate the man from the message, right? Here's a guy coming from an EU nation, EU member state, going to the European Parliament in front of everybody and telling them, listen, like, who are you? I don't know who you are. I'm not comfortable with this lack of transparency. My country's not comfortable with this lack of transparency, and I'm going to call you out. So it was that strong for somebody from another country to come out and like blast this all over the world. So loss of autonomy, lack of transparency is a big issue in the world. It's not a trivial matter. So what's the solution, though? Sorry. What's the solution? Do we want to do like a Brexit-style exit from the European Union? No, I don't agree with that either. You know, it's like it doesn't really solve the problems with autonomy and centralization. Like even today in the UK, you have people talking about, oh, I wanted a hard Brexit, but we're not going to get it because the Prime Minister and Parliament, they're like debating back and forth what they want to do, and the bureaucrat machine is at working, you know, at it again. And then some people change their mind. They're like, oh, you know, I want a soft Brexit now, or no Brexit at all. And that just goes back to the case where in between elections, the people have very limited options to influence their government. So no, I don't agree with the solution. What I propose instead is autonomy with smart contracts. So I feel like with the smart contracts, again, we spoke about this as a program. You can write pieces of code that contain rules, definitions, and functions of your decentralized autonomous organization. It lives on the blockchain. It accepts transactions, business transactions from any Ethereum account all over the world, depending on the rules of that organization. You can read every bit of the contract on the internet. It's open source by nature. It's either been vetted by the online community or by your peers. It's completely transparent. The average Bulgarian citizen with a computer and an internet connection can look up the smart contract, read everything about it, and he can say, I like this, or I don't like this. I don't want to participate. And that's the way it should be. That's how transparency works. So I'm very bullish on smart contracts and achieving autonomy as a people with smart contracts. So let's talk a bit about these smart contracts. Code is law. Automated governance. Unstoppable code. You can't bribe a machine. It's transparent. And my favorite of all, it's stateless. Not stateless in the programming sense. You know, stateless in terms of like global actors and nation states. So code is law, right? If you wrote the code to say, I don't want members with this kind of like background who did like nefarious things, took bribes, I don't want them in the organization, or you could say things like, whatever you want. You could say like, oh, I want to have like 2 presidents, 3 presidents. It's up to you. The point is, nobody can come in there, no government or Vitalik Buterin can be like, hey, listen, like, I know you said you wanted, you know, a president and a vice president, but I'm going to put a prime minister now. You know? You can't do that. Once it's written, deployed to the network, it's immutable, lives on the blockchain, runs as such in a manner that you'd expect.
You chose the right word for this.
I know. I knew somebody was going to, it's a bit of a joke, but we'll talk about it later. There's automated governance, right? So you don't need to hire bureaucrats upon bureaucrats or judges upon judges, human judges, to go through cases, to look at proposals, to handle day-to-day tasks. Those are all done away with the smart contract. The smart contract can count the votes, it can receive proposals, it can execute proposals on your behalf without any bureaucrat touching a computer. I think that's beautiful. I don't know how you guys feel about it. I'm like getting wrapped up in it right now. There's unstoppable code, right? We spoke about this. Once you write your contract, compile it, you deploy it to the EVM, that's it. Now your DAO is forever on the blockchain until the Ethereum network dies or is replaced by EOS or something. This is great because it can be good and bad in some cases. So it's good that like no government can take it down. But let's say you made a mistake in your smart contract and there's a serious bug in there. It's quite difficult to take it down, but that's something that we can go into after the lecture. You can't bribe a machine, right? So you say, you go to the smart contract of the machine, you give it some cash, You're like, hey, can you like, take our proposal? And the machine will like, it's a machine, right? You can take the machine, put it on a yacht, right? And then you try to convince it. It's going to be unconvinced. The machine will look at the code, see the incoming transactions, execute as such according to the rules you've defined since you wrote the smart contract. Very different from how things work today. It's highly transparent. As we mentioned earlier, you can go on the internet, with your computer, go to Etherscan and see hundreds upon thousands of smart contracts that have already been written. If you want to, you can spend months looking at smart contracts. And I just want to show you one that I like, that I think is kind of cool. I don't know why it's dark, but so this is Crypto 20. This is kind of like a hedge fund or like an index fund for cryptocurrencies. And as an investor, you don't like shadiness, lack of transparency, counterparty risk. But I felt confident, as others, when you go through the website, you read about them, the typical marketing drivel. But then you come to here, and you're like, what is this? Like, this is amazing. You can see the smart contract in clear fashion, how you're going to withdraw your money when you want to, how to liquidate it, how withdrawals will be enacted. And if you want, you can go to their GitHub right on that link and look at it more until you make a decision. Okay, I feel good about this. I don't see any funny business. And that's like a really huge advantage in my opinion. So my favorite of all is stateless. I think I mentioned this quite a number of times because it's just, I want to hammer it home that the smart contract does not belong to any country on the planet. Okay? It does not respect borders that have been defined by politicians or bureaucrats. It's essentially a global entity, a global enterprise. And it's the first time, I think, that we've seen we can create a massive distributed autonomous organization globally all over the world. So it doesn't matter if you're in Bulgaria or you're chilling out in like New Zealand, you can still take part in the smart contract wherever you are. So this is a huge plus in my opinion. What time is it now? So I think it's a good time to get into the live demo. And I'm just going to switch gears here. I'm going to do a little bit of technical maneuvering. I know it's not the greatest moments, but okay. I'm going to go here and this is why I didn't want to do this. Okay. So I'm going to turn off the mirroring. Is it mirrored? Oh yeah, mirror displays. Oh, I want mirror. Okay. Okay, so the recording stopped. That's going to be a problem. Sorry, Dylan. Dale, sorry. So let's go take a look at.
Did you restart it?
Can I restart it? Yeah, I can restart it for you.
Yes, it's better than not going at all.
Do I keep this though?
Yes.
Okay. One. Sorry, guys. So while it's saving, I guess I have to wait.
No.
It's gonna be 4 minutes. I don't know. I was screencasting, but then it cut out.
That's because you use a Mac.
Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, you use OBS. That's because you use QuickTime there, not Mac.
Do you need the screencast for what I just did?
No, you didn't touch anything. Just give me the slideshow. I need the slide. I need the screencast now. From now on, the live demo. If you give me the slides, I can deal with the rest. So yeah, you can cancel this.
Okay.
Just make sure you start recording now. And I'll cut all this out.
So I can get rid of this.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm going to effectively do the same thing. Sorry, guys. Yep. Okay. And okay, ready to go. Back up. So I came across this resource. It's at ethereum.org/DAO, and it teaches you how to build a democracy on the blockchain, or I like to prefer a republic. And you get down, and they talk a little bit about what they like about a DAO, why you should use a DAO, what DAOs can do. So we're more interested in the code that we're going to work with. They call it the Blockchain Congress. Let's not get into the nitty-gritty. We're not here to discuss Solidity programming principles or anything. We want to understand the concepts of a DAO implemented using Solidity and smart contracts. So let's skip these two contracts, and let's look at this one. This one is the Congress contract, and there's a lot of state variables, but the ones we're most interested in are minimum quorum. So that says, okay, how many number of votes do you need minimum before a proposal can pass? So you can have a majority with 3 votes against 2, but if you set your minimum quorum at 5, now you're 2 votes short of a minimum quorum, since it was set at 5. So that proposal will not pass until there's 2 more votes in favor. You have debating period in minutes. Before a proposal can be executed, there's a bit of time for everybody to talk about the proposal, what they like about it, what they don't like about it. Opponents and proponents can face off against each other. You have majority margin. That is going to help you with, if you have 50% of the votes in, you want to know, okay, how many votes on top of 50% do you need before the proposal can pass? So 1 is a simple majority, so 50% plus 1 guy or a girl, and -1 for unanimous proposal. Everybody has to vote on it. So it's up to you. I wonder if I have time to go over the rest of the code in a deeper manner, but okay, so yeah, the proposal, members, the vote. Here you have the constructor with the 3 parameters we discussed earlier. You could add a member to your organization. As you can see, only the owner can do so. That can be changed though. You can remove members, change voting rules. So if you didn't like 5 minutes for a debate, you can do 60 minutes. Here is an important one. This is a new proposal. So here it says only members of the organization can propose a proposal. And as you can see, we're going through the code and adding it as part of the state of our contract, stored in the blockchain. Here's just a convenience method to do a proposal in Ether. So just want to say this right now before I forget. When you create your DAO, you want to give it some Ether, right? As they say in the USA, you got to give it some teeth. Like a DAO with no money isn't going to do much. These are not that important. Okay, this is the vote. So only members can vote on a proposal. So here they give the number of the proposal, whether they support it or not, and justification as to why they voted the way they did. And here is the main part of the contract. We can execute the proposal. So here you're checking to see whether it's already been executed, if it's past the execution time in terms of the debate time, the number of votes meets the quorum, and then they'll send the Ether to the recipient and execute the transaction that was being debated on. So ideally, I wanted to use what they were saying, like this nice, wonderful, Ethereum wallet UI, where you can choose, which contract you want, and it tells you the parameters. It wasn't really working for me, so we're going to use this one. Yeah, I know it's really ugly, not user intuitive, but it works. And so here's the contract that I've copied and pasted from the website, and everything's pretty much very similar. I changed it for demonstration purposes, just a disclaimer. And here you have your console to read what's going on with your transactions or calls. Here we can choose the kind of contract we want, and the other 3 were auxiliary contracts to help. Which one?
The right one.
Oh,
From the browser.
I see. Really?
Oh yeah, or command and plus.
Command and plus? You see it?
No,
Hmm.
Maybe the 3 dots top right.
Where?
Top right, before ending. Yes. And
Oh, okay.
okay.
Is that better, guys?
oh yeah.
Is that okay? Because I want to show the console. Is this okay, everybody? Okay, great. Sorry about that. So we're going to choose our contract that we have here. We're going to go with the JavaScript virtual machine environment. So you can choose to use MetaMask, for example, but for demonstration purposes, that would take too long. And you can use your own local Geth instance running your own node. But here, we're just going to use a JavaScript VM. It's an emulated blockchain in the browser. So just know that even if you make a contract here, you can't share it with anybody. They can't do anything with it. So just keep that in mind. All right. We have 5 contracts here. I mean, 5 accounts here with the amount of ether they own. And just before I forget, let's put in 10 ether there. Right? Okay. So let's deploy our smart contract. So minimum quorum, we spoke about this already. Just as a reminder, the number of votes you need, minimum number of votes you need before a proposal can pass. I'm going to put it at 0. Debates, it's going to be 1 minute because I don't want to wait. And margin will also be 0. Now, this is the moment of truth. You know, like we've written our smart contract. We like everything we see, but nothing has happened yet until we hit the transaction button. Yeah, so the transaction went through, and now we have, congratulations, your DAO is now on the Ethereum network, and anybody can interact with it and join and debate whatever you want to do. So here's our deployed contract and its functions. So the red buttons are functions that submit transactions. So they change the state of your contract. And the blue ones are buttons for calling bits of your contract. So the red is writing to your contract, and the blue is reading from your contract. So let's do some reading of our contract. Let's say we're a new guy. I want to know more about this organization. All right, debating time. Oh, it's 1 minute. That's really not my kind of flavor. I like, you know, healthy debate. Majority margin, 0. I don't really care about that. Minimum quora, 0. No proposals yet. I know who the owner is. And so let's say, okay, I want to join this organization. So let's say I'm a second guy. And we want to, let me just make this a little bigger. You guys, we don't really need the code per se.
So if we need one more time.
Oh, really? Okay. Is that good? Yeah, the console needs to be moved up. And how's that? Is that better? Okay, let's clear that up. Okay, so let's add our member to our organization, our first member of our DAO. We got this guy, and let's call him Simeon. Right? Huh? And, oh, it failed. I wonder why. So as we spoke about earlier, only the owner can do so. So let's switch it back to the owner. Let's clear our console. Let's do it again. So we got Simeon, right? Yay. So we now have a member of our DAO, our very first member. And I forgot to mention, for some reason, they wanted to have the first member be nothing. The second member will be the founder. And so we're going to start at 2. So you can check here to see, oh yeah, great, I am a member, and your name is there, you're a member since that block time. So let's add a few more, just so we can get like some votes going on. So I'm going to add this guy. Huh? Yeah, I'll change it. This guy will be, let's say, Nikolai. All right. Switch back here. We'll another transaction. We'll add, let's say, Vlad. Okay. Did I do that one already? Let me just see. So this is nice. I can come here and be like, okay, is there a 4th member? Okay, is a 3rd member. Did it change at all? Okay, Simeon, Vlad. Okay, so we have 2, 3, 4. So this guy, let's make him, say, Patrick. Sorry. This is why I do not like Remix, but I think we have enough members though. Okay, and just to be sure, we don't have to go back and forth. Let's add one more. We have George. Okay. So now we have the founder along with 4 other members of our DAO. Now let's say, okay, Simeon wants to make a proposal. So we go to the new proposal here. He wants to be the beneficiary of that proposal. This guy, I'm sorry, let's go with the ether one. He wants to be beneficiary. He wants 1 ether for protect Varna from pirates, right? And let's put like some mumbo jumbo here. This part is not really important for us. And let's execute our new proposal. Great. Now we have one proposal in our DAO. Now if we come down here and we check, we can see, okay, we got a proposal here from this guy here. He wants 1 ether to protect Varna from pirates. And we have to discuss this for 1 minute. So discuss away while I vote. Then we have maybe somebody else here. They're going to vote on it. Well, let's have Simeon can vote on his own. So he comes here to vote on his proposal. He knows his proposal. True. And justification, it's my proposal. Right? So we got, so now let's see the state change of that. All right, so we have 1 vote in there. Current result is a 1. Hasn't been executed yet, hasn't been passed yet. Then let's say we get Nikolai in here, and he's going to vote too. He's going to say, no, I don't like it. Simeon is overpaid for such a simple job. Right? So he's voting against them, or against his proposal, I should say. Right? So now with 2 votes, current result is 0. So the vote can't really pass here. Then we get, I think it was Vlad or Patrick here, and he's going to vote on it too. He's going to say, okay, true. And he'll say like, I like Sunny Beach or something. You know, why not? Okay. And we will vote. Excellent. So right now, we have 3 votes in, and the balance of the vote is a 1. So that's enough to have the proposal to pass. I think it's very difficult to read that execution date, but I think it's been 1 minute already. So let's execute the vote. I mean the proposal. So execution. Come here. Execute.
Who has the power to execute it?
Usually it's the owner. So again, I said I modified it for presentation purposes, but yeah, usually it's the owner that can do it. So that should have reverted, but let's just say.
Also structure the DAO in any such way that you can make it like a president that you vote for. You can make it that the person who does the proposal says it, or you have to have a set time.
Mm-hmm.
After 2 hours, if the quorum's not met, it's voted against. If the quorum's met against, right, it votes for, and or if there's enough votes, it passes. So you can, because you're the owner of the DAO, you're the person creating it, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
But then there is another question.
Yeah.
Let's say this proposal is completely approved and the guy gets the money and the job, and then instead of going to protect from pirates, he goes straight to the product.
Yeah, exactly. He'll go to like.
So what then?
So
There should be a rule about that for the guy that doesn't like abide by the thing that he told that he's gonna do. He may be just abandon.
So, to answer your question, like this is a very simple example, right? So it doesn't really do DAOs justice. But the way that I've been reading it is, let's say you have a sophisticated and complex supply chain, right? And you want your product to go from A to B, and there are many actors in between. So each of them have to be paid and do their job accordingly. So the idea is like, okay, you know, he's being paid to do this, he signs off on it, does his job, signs off on it, and so on down the chain. The chain now breaks. People can be like, okay, like we did our job, but this guy messed up, you know? And so we know who to pinpoint. And we'll go to that person and be like, yo, what's going on? And he'll be like, oh, you know, like I did everything the way it was supposed to be done. And you'll say, no, you didn't, because you didn't sign any transaction. The transaction never completed this chain of transactions to reach the final end, to the product. So that's one way I've heard of, you know.
Yeah, but at the end that would go back to the court and suing each other with lawyers. it's not autonomous if it needs the
Well, think of it this way: you can fire the guy, remove him from the DAO, right? And that's it. Like he's no longer part of the organization.
Then again, if you have rules that can counter the breaking of the first rules, these rules can also be countered, can be broken.
Well, I think like so.
It's a
So the DAO itself. Okay, so now we're getting to design of design theory of a DAO, and I'm not an expert on design theory of DAOs. Just a disclaimer. I'm just here as a technologist, as a smart contracts kind of guy, and I'm showing you what can be possible. So maybe somebody can come in and be like, "Oh, I've designed the perfect DAO," you know, and this can answer your question. I'm not that guy. I can just say like, "Here's a technology. It's agnostic in nature, and you can just it's limited by your imagination, and those geniuses who are better than programmers can go out there and make it happen, you know." And we just go in there and do the code. But let's go back to the proposal. Let's take a look. There we go. It's been executed. The proposal is passed, and Simeon got his 1 Ether. So now he's going to go on a weekend trip to Golden Beach or something like that, or whatever it is. And yeah, that's essentially it in a nutshell. So this presentation, we've learned many things. We learned about what centralized versus decentralized means for us. Dependence versus autonomy. Smart contracts. Penka the cow. Come on, who could forget her? And I believe that was the last one. Oh yeah. So that's it for me. Any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Why do you actually need Ethereum?
Why do we need Ethereum? You don't need Ethereum. I'm just using Ethereum as an example. So the DAO itself is an agnostic concept, right? It's like this is what can be possible with a smart contract on a blockchain. Very generic terms.
Actually, it was possible before that.
Was
The
it?
Oracle database can be distributed, so
Right.
everybody can run it just like a node. It supports hashing and other crypto operations, so that you can actually add the verification of private keys.
Mm-hmm.
So why do people need to pay money for fees for miners in order to vote?
So the question is, why should we use a blockchain such as Ethereum or Neo or whatnot when we've already had a certain technology by Oracle using databases and cryptographic hashing and function? Well, so is that one free?
Yeah.
It's free? Okay, so I don't like the idea of free ones. You know, it's like, this is better because you have some stake in your choices that you're making. You know, you can't just spam like the network with like garbage. You can't be like, oh, it's free, I'm just gonna play around and do this and that. Here you have money at stake. These are financial matters, you know, and it's important. Now I have to think like, okay, I wrote this smart contract, but listen, like I could lose a lot of money if it's not written correctly, or people can be like, feel like they were like cheated. Oh, I'm now a member of a DAO. I'm voting with my voice, with my money. I want to take this seriously. Under your scenario, yeah, the technology's there. The problem is not the technology.
Does that mean that poor people cannot vote?
Well, this is a philosophical debate, right? It goes back to the principle back in even America or the United States where they're saying only property owners should be able to vote. Because everybody else, they have nothing to lose, right? That's kind of the debate that I'm hearing right now in the blockchain Ethereum world. It's more, everything's more, right now at this point, more philosophical in debating nature. It's nothing to do with technology. Forget the technology. Technology doesn't really matter. It's about what the technology enables us to do and the decisions we make as a people as to how we want to form institutions and governments, companies, right? That's all the technology is there to do. Technology is not there to say, oh, we're going to fix people. We're going to tell people how to live and how to be. No, the technology is there. Here are the tools. Make this great, amazing DAO that like solves like political problems, solves problems of nation state or unions or whatever. Or you can make CryptoKitties. It's up to you. That's how I see it, at least.
Well, I was in a team before. This
Mhm.
team of 5 people, including me. I wanted to make a DAO.
Mm-hmm.
And however, they didn't want to invite anybody to that DAO.
Mm-hmm.
Just us 5 to make a decentralized organization, and then
Mhm.
completely could control it
Mm-hmm.
without anybody else. And also speaking on chat all the time before actually voting.
Well, that sounds more like a problem with your organization, isn't it? As opposed to the design of the
That's why I
DAO.
left it.
Yeah. So now you can make your own DAO, right? The way you want it. Now you have the freedom to do so. And the idea is it's trustless, it's autonomous. Nobody's gonna come after you and be like, hey, I don't like your DAO, we're taking it down. That's the whole point. You know, the point isn't like, oh, we've given you all these technologies to make you a better politician or a corporate statesman or whatever. None of that. It's up to you and designers and regular people to come together and figure out a better system. Just like, I hate to use another American example, but just like the Founding Fathers of America did when they came together and said, okay, we're gonna make this amazing constitution and it's gonna rock everybody's world, right? So, yeah, that's it. Thank you.